As we walked across campus, leaving behind our youngest son's dorm room, my wife, Elena, was fighting back tears. We had just finished moving him in, and now she was sniffling, not alone though. Rena, our neighbor, was dabbing at her eyes too. Her son was sharing the room with ours. "I can't believe they're grown up already," Rena sighed, fishing a napkin from her purse. Elena accepted one with a soft thanks, then added, "Yeah, it's really hard to believe." She wiped her eyes slowly, the reality settling in. They've got so many decisions to make on their own now. I nodded, but my thoughts were somewhere else entirely. I wasn't just thinking about our son starting college. I was thinking about my decision, one that had been marinating in the back of my mind for nearly a decade. Is this the right time? Is it even necessary anymore? Should I go through with it, or just let it die quietly? As we neared the parking lot, Elena reached for my hand. I sidestepped it, pretending to fish around in my pocket for the car keys, even though we were still a good 100 yards from my SUV. I caught a confused glance from Rena, but I kept my eyes down. "It's okay, Marcus," Elena said gently. "I know what you're feeling. If only you knew," I thought grimly, trying to push away the rising tide of memories, especially the one moment that started everything. It was over 10 years ago. Elena and I had just celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary. It was also an election year, one of those ugly ones. The kind where the only thing worse than the lies coming from one party were the bigger lies coming from the other. I remember joking to a coworker, "When crooked politicians die, do they even bother digging a hole, or just screw them into the ground head first?" After lunch that day, I checked the mailbox. Between the usual junk and overdue utility bills, something caught my eye, a padded envelope. I'd won a batch of SD cards on eBay, and the delivery had been delayed. Finally, I tore it open from the back. Inside was another envelope smaller, manila, bulging slightly. I froze. This wasn't what I ordered. "Shit," I muttered, tearing into it. A folded letter fell out first. Even before reading it, something in my gut twisted. Then I saw the first line. "Dear Elena, I hope this letter finds you in good health and better spirits. I've recently acknowledged and accepted my addiction to alcohol. With the help of my higher power and a sponsor, I've been working the 12-step program. I've been sober now for 90 days. Part of that program requires making amends to people I've hurt. You're on my list. I'm willing to do whatever I can to make things right, though I don't know what that would even look like. Only now, in sobriety, have I begun to fully regret what we did. I don't want to bring chaos into your life. I know this could hurt you. I feel like a coward for not reaching out in person, but this is the best I can do. I'm asking for your forgiveness. And if you want me gone forever, I'll vanish. I swear. As for what's in the envelope, do with it what you want. I don't have the courage to destroy them, but I also can't trust myself not to keep them. They come with memories and temptation. Always wishing you peace, Josh." "What the hell?" I said out loud, my voice echoing off the kitchen cabinets as I unwrapped the thick envelope further. Inside were photographs. A stack. A very familiar stack. My eyes dropped to the address label. It was addressed to Elena. No mistake. Josh. Regretting what we did. What the hell did they do? The only Josh I remembered was a lowlife who used to live 2 doors down. He'd moved away years ago. A burnout. Lived in his mom's basement. Claimed he was in photography. Right. That creep was at least 10 years older than us. We used to call him Slinky because the only time he was entertaining was when he tumbled down a flight of stairs. I vaguely recalled something about Josh losing the house after his parents died, couldn't keep up with the property taxes or something along those lines. Honestly, I never paid much attention to him after he moved. He just faded from relevance. But now my thoughts were a twisted storm of disbelief and dread. I realized I was still clutching that small manila envelope, my fingers digging into the corners like they could erase what I'd just read. I tossed the padded envelope and let her aside like they were infected, and cracked open the thick manila one. A stack of 8x13 photographs slid out. The first few made my stomach knot up instantly. It was Elena, a decade younger, posing provocatively. She wore a tight blouse and those faded shorts she used to wear around the house back then. Something about the lighting, the composition, it was clearly done by someone with more than a disposable camera. I flipped the photos over, no dates, nothing, just raw visual evidence. I rushed into my home office, my hands trembling slightly, and grabbed a framed family photo from my desk. It was one Elena gave me as a Christmas gift years ago. She was sitting down, holding our oldest son, a baby, in her arms at the time. And there it was. She was wearing the exact same blouse, the exact same shorts, same light pouring through the window, same damn day. I turned the framed picture over. The 9th of December, 9 years ago, written neatly in her handwriting. I looked back at the stack of photos from the envelope. The ones of her alone shifted into ones where her blouse had been pulled off, then her shorts. Then she was topless, then completely nude. And then Elena in different positions, intimate, exposed, having sex. My throat dried out. I sat down, fast, like my knees just gave up. My heart was pounding, but everything else felt numb, like the air had been sucked out of the room. "How long?" I whispered aloud, my voice barely audible. "How long has she been cheating on me behind my back?" My eyes fell on the family photos lining my desk. Elena smiling in her wedding dress. Elena holding our firstborn. Elena with both boys through the years. I studied them, one by one, like I was searching for a watermark that read lies. All but the first were stamped with logos from various photo labs. She'd made prints from Walgreens, Target, Costco, all different. And then, a horrible thought rooted itself in my mind. What if the boys aren't even mine? I grabbed the latest photo, Elena with our 2 sons in their summer league baseball uniforms, standing by the dugout, grinning proudly. It was the kind of picture that makes a dad swell with pride. I tried to see them with fresh eyes, critically, analytically. Both boys had Elena's coloring, her nose, her eyes, but the shape of their jaws, the way they stood, the set of their shoulders, that was me, right? It had to be. I leaned back in my chair, suddenly exhausted. Nothing about this helped. I needed proof, cold, objective proof. A thought struck me, and I began tearing through my desk drawers. Somewhere, buried in the administrative chaos of life, there was a copy of the medical paperwork our boys submitted for baseball this season. Back in my day, those forms asked who to call if you broke an ankle. Now, it was 6 pages long. Allergies, medications, consent forms, Hawaii PAA clauses, waivers, insurance disclosures. Hell, I'm pretty sure the treaty that ended World War II was shorter than this damn thing. Eventually, I found what I was looking for. Tucked in the middle of page 3, blood types, verified and filled in by our family doctor. I reached for my wallet. I pulled out my old Red Cross blood donor card, the faded plastic still tucked behind a couple of receipts. It clearly read, blood type O. I remembered how Elena and I used to joke about being perfect blood donor matches. She had type O too. "We're biologically compatible," she used to say, laughing. "Even our blood knows we're meant to be together." Yeah, hilarious. I scanned the form from the baseball league again, our older son's info. Blood type. Oh, my chest eased a little. Okay, that fits. One less crack in the foundation. But then I turned to our younger son's form. The section on blood type was bold, printed clearly by the doctor. Aplis. I froze. I wasn't a doctor, but even a half-awake sophomore from a high school biology class would know this much. 2 type O parents can't biologically produce a child with type A blood. It wasn't a gray area. It was genetics 101. Number no. 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 I stared at that A+ like I could will it into something else. Maybe it's a typo, I muttered. Maybe the doctor made a mistake. But the longer I stared at it, the more it solidified. It wasn't changing. And just like that, my world collapsed again for the second time that day. The first implosion had been from betrayal. This one was identity-shattering. I wasn't just a husband who'd been lied to. I might not even be a father. My mind spun off into chaos. I'm going to kill her. No, I'll leave her. No, I'll kill her first and then leave her. No, I'll just take the boys. She doesn't deserve them. But then another thought whispered, cruel and cold. What if the boys don't want to go with you? What if they choose her over you? What if they're not even yours to choose from? I sat there for over an hour, thoughts looping like a scratched CD, spiraling in and out of rage, heartbreak, and confusion. And after all that mental chaos, I had nothing. No answers, no plan, just exhaustion. Eventually, I dragged myself upstairs like a man with lead in his legs and collapsed into bed. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, silently watching Elena's back as she rinsed something in the sink. She looked the same as always, hair tied up, moving with her usual rhythm. But something in me had shifted, like a curtain had been yanked away, and I could suddenly see the wires, the gears, the sleight of hand in the magic trick I'd been living in for over a decade. She hadn't changed overnight, I had. Elena, I said quietly, do you remember Josh? I couldn't see her face, but I saw it in her body, the stiffening, that pause. It was only a second, maybe less, but I caught it. Josh? She echoed, turning around, her expression carefully casual. Our old neighbor Josh? Wow, I haven't heard that name in 12 years? I was just thinking about him. His photography stuff. He was always running around, taking pictures of the neighborhood kids. You don't think he was some kind of creep, do you? Like, a pedophile? She laughed nervously, waving the dish rag. Believe me, Marcus, Josh was not into kids. My eyes narrowed. And how exactly do you know that, Elena? There was another pause, barely perceptible, but it was there. She dried her hands slowly, then called the boys over for breakfast like she needed the distraction. He was always hungover, dragging half-dressed bimbos out of that basement, she said with a forced grin. You could smell the booze from across the street. The guy was a walking cliché. You seem to know Josh pretty well. My voice was level, too calm. She looked over her shoulder. Do I miss him? Number, not really. She shrugged. Things got a lot better after Katie moved in next door anyway. Elena's tone lightened as she changed the subject. You know, our boys and hers became inseparable almost overnight. Katie really pulled through. She bought that house after Josh's bank foreclosed on it, used her late husband's life insurance money. He was a cop, died on duty. I remembered that. We all went to the funeral. Katie was wrecked. Our kids were the same age, Elena continued, pouring orange juice like we were having a normal conversation. They clicked instantly. And Katie, well, she worked crazy hours. So we kind of adopted her kids too. It was easier just to take all four to games, the beach, school stuff. She laughed again. I used to joke we should claim her kids as dependents on our taxes. I stared at her. So Katie couldn't hammer a nail into a wall, she added with a smirk. And you know how she is, she'd call me, and I'd send you over as her husband for an hour. She laughed like it was a funny memory, like we were just reminiscing. But I wasn't laughing. I was dissecting, watching, waiting. I was never going to be one of those guys who ends up on this old house, but I could hold my own with basic repairs. My dad had been the real deal, a craftsman through and through. His philosophy was simple. If it can't be fixed with a hammer, you've got an electrical problem. So yeah, I didn't mind doing the odd jobs around Katie's place. She was easygoing, respectful of my time, and grateful, but she never made a move or dropped any hints. I didn't show any interest either. I'd made vows, and whether or not those vows meant anything to Elena, they still meant something to me. My dad raised us to be the kind of men who honored their word, even when nobody was looking. Elena strolled over and gave me a playful tap on the shoulder, her voice laced with mock innocence. Mark, don't tell me you're actually jealous of me and Josh after all these years? I didn't even blink. The thief always thinks someone's stealing. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Do I have a reason to be jealous? I asked, flatly. Elena pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, but she didn't look at me. Instead, she just stirred her coffee like it held some answer at the bottom. "Of course not," she mumbled. "Josh was just a harmless drunk. He took pictures of everything. He probably could have been a decent photographer if he'd ever put the bottle down." I leaned back, folding my arms, saying nothing. She looked up for a moment, just a flick of the eyes, then back down. "Come on, Mark. We were all so young. You were working 2 jobs and going to school. I was home all day with the baby. 10 hours of diapers, spit up, and Barney reruns. I just needed someone to talk to. Everyone else on the street was working. Josh was just..." She paused. Just there. Still, I said nothing. Now she was starting to get upset, defensive. "Oh my God, Mark. What, you think I slept with some middle-aged drunk between nap time and laundry?" I put down my coffee, calmly. "Elena, your reactions are not helping. You're being incredibly defensive, and it's starting to feel like the best defense is a good offense." She shot me a glare, the kind that was half anger, half fear. But before she could fire back, we were interrupted. The boys burst into the kitchen, laughing, loud, hungry. I stood up without a word. My silence said more than any argument ever could. As I walked upstairs, I knew reconciliation was off the table. Maybe my anger would pass. Maybe I'd forgive her. Eventually. But the trust? That was gone. And it wasn't coming back. The next day, I was in my brother's office. He leaned over his desk, looking through the photographs, the letter, and the rest of the mess I'd dumped into a folder. "Mark, are you sure you want to do this?" Eric asked. Eric wasn't my brother by blood. He was my half-brother. In the loose sense, more of a miracle of circumstance than genetics. His parents had escaped Eastern Europe during the Cold War. They lived near us when we were kids. Then tragedy hit a car accident, took both of them when Eric and I were only 6. The social worker brought him to our house for what was supposed to be a couple of days, just until they located some extended family. But no one ever came. No relatives, no updates. His case got lost in the system, forgotten. So Eric just stayed. I was too young to understand any of that back then. I thought it was just one really long sleepover. Looking back, I realize now what kind of pressure that must have put on our working-class family. Years later, I asked Mom how she managed it, feeding one more mouth, keeping the lights on. She just shrugged. Slice the bread thinner. Add more water to the soup. Dad never once questioned the decision. He never saw Eric as a burden. In fact, he treated him exactly the same as me and my brothers, which, depending on Dad's mood, could be a blessing or a curse. Dad was a deeply religious man, but not in the church-going sense. He believed faith was what you did, not what you recited. He ended every prayer the same way. "Next time, Lord, let there be more at the table, not less, and protect us from your followers." And now here I was, sitting across from Eric, the closest thing I had to a brother, showing him pictures I never wanted to see, asking questions I never thought I'd ask, and preparing for a future I never expected to face. I remember once asking my father why he took on the burden of another mouth to feed, especially when we were barely getting by as it was. He just shrugged and said, "Because that's what a man does." That was it. No lecture, no drama, just a quiet code he lived by. Eric was so light-skinned he practically glowed, all pale complexion and ash blonde hair, straight out of his Eastern European roots. I, on the other hand, had the deeper tones of our parents' Southern Italian heritage, so whenever we introduced ourselves as brothers, people would pause, puzzled, trying to work out the math. Once, at a father-son event, someone commented to our dad, "Your wife must have a very fair complexion." Dad grinned and said, "Yeah, it's actually translucent." Eric was brilliant. He breezed through law school, graduated top of his class, and got scooped up by one of the country's top firms right out of the gate. He clawed his way to partner, grinding through 80-hour work weeks like they were nothing. He had it all: the high-rise apartment, the high-end car, the picture-perfect wife from some upper-crust family. She was always on his arm at every gala, every fundraiser, every holiday party. And then, one day, Eric barged into the office of one of the senior partners, his mentor, ready to share some big news. He'd just landed a major client deal. But instead of high fives and handshakes, he got blindsided. There she was, his wife in that office. Not sitting, not talking, not dressed. It was the kind of betrayal that shatters something permanent. Eric didn't make a scene. He stayed with the firm until the end of the fiscal year to collect every last bonus, benefit, and vested option he'd earned. Then he walked out, and most of the firm's best lawyers and clients walked out with him. The firm limped on for a while, but it never recovered. Eventually, it folded completely. Now Eric runs a small but extremely profitable legal practice contracts, wills, high-end disputes, quiet, efficient, powerful. And when he really wants to make money, he operates as a legal hitman outside counsel on multi-million-dollar lawsuits, hired to surgically dismantle the other side's case. He's remarried now, has 2 kids of his own, but we're still close. Eric flipped through the folder of evidence, the letter, the photographs, the forms. He was quiet, composed, but I saw his jaw tighten. "Mark, you're still in shock," he said finally. "Take a little time. Let it sink in. Don't rush into anything." "How'd you do it?" I asked, sarcasm sharp in my voice. "You're my hero, man. The way you torched that firm and walked away from all of it, how the hell did you hold it together?" Eric gave a small smile. "Not everyone's meant to be a hero. Someone's got to sit on the side of the road and clap when the heroes pass by." Then he got serious. "Listen, Mark," he said. "Your wife, Elena, she's a person. And most people, they're terrible at seeing past themselves. We only look at how we're treated, not at how our actions mess up everyone around us." "Oh, great," I sighed. "You're Yoda now?" He chuckled. "Number. Just someone who's been through it and came out the other side." I stared at the papers on his desk. "I want out," I said firmly. "My revenge? That she doesn't get a damn cent. I want everyone to know what she did. I want her to choke on her own lies. I want her to look in the mirror and realize what she gave up for a drunken loser with a second-hand camera." Eric nodded slowly, tapping his fingers on the desk. "Okay, but here's the thing. Revenge. It tells them they won, that they got to you. It's the ultimate confirmation that they still have power over you." He leaned in, locking eyes with me. "You hand that power over, you lose more than your pride. You lose control, dignity, clarity. And man, trust me, they love that. Don't give it to them. Not for free." I stayed quiet, breathing hard. "Mark," he said, his tone softening. "I know it sucks. I know you want justice. But sometimes the best revenge is living well and letting them rot in their own guilt, alone, while you move on." He turned to his keyboard and began typing. The screen glowed softly as he pulled up a legal template. "Let's start with a clean break," he said, "and make damn sure she never sees a penny she didn't earn." "I don't do family law," Eric said. "But my buddy from the old firm? He's a shark. I mean, this guy does not lose. Ruthless. He's the kind of attorney who makes judges sweat." "You sure you want to do this?" "Call him," I said. A week later, we were in an upscale corner office downtown. The kind with glass walls, sleek wood paneling, and a view of the skyline that screamed billable hours. Mr. Big Shot, as Eric jokingly called him, had just finished combing through the mountain of documents I brought. Tax returns, mortgage payments, bank statements, payroll info, copies of the paternity tests, even our wills. The list of what he asked for seemed to grow every day. After what felt like an eternity, he took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes, and leaned back in his chair. "Forget about it." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He looked at me, unblinking. "Forget about it." This was the guy, the high-end, high-fee, legal pit bull, and here he was, telling me to throw in the towel. "Mark," he said, "I know you're Eric's guy, so I'm gonna give it to you straight. He folded his hands and looked me dead in the eye. Forget about it. I sat back, stunned. So what? I'm supposed to just smile and pretend none of this happened? Pretend I wasn't lied to, cheated on, played for a fool? He shrugged. Unless you have video footage of your wife Elena shotgunning Red Bulls into your toddler's mouth while making the kids fight for cash prizes, there's not much you can do legally. He pointed a thick finger at me. Right now, you've got a nice house, a wife, and 2 healthy kids. If you push this in the wrong direction, you'll end up in a studio apartment eating microwave soup 5 nights a week. Half your income will be gone. And guess what? Elena's going to find herself a new boyfriend. Or 2, and you'll be footing the bill. I felt the blood drain from my face. Elena works. Why the hell should I pay child support for a kid who isn't even mine? Mr. Big Shot raised an eyebrow. Mark, I'll take your money if you're that committed to this crusade. But let's walk through the reality first. He tapped the paternity report. Elena works part-time in a hair salon, right? That brings in peanuts compared to your income. So yes, alimony is a given. The only real debate is how much and for how long. As for child support, he let out a humorless laugh. Only 6 states in the U.S. allow men to stop or avoid paying child support for a child not biologically theirs if the child was born during the marriage. And surprise, we don't live in one of those 6. But what if I can prove she knew all along that our younger son isn't mine? I asked. Isn't that fraud? A scam? He leaned forward, elbows on the thick desk, voice low and cynical. You want to hear a dirty little secret? I nodded slowly. Even if you prove she knew that she flat out lied to your face and presented that child as yours even then, there is no legal punishment. 0. Nada. No compensation. No payback. Not even an apology required by law. My mouth fell open. He continued. Hell, you could have been paying child support for 17 years. Then she announces it publicly, takes out a full-page ad in the New York Times, says, by the way, not his kid. I knew all along. And guess what? Still nothing. No legal consequence. You want a real nightmare? He added. There's this guy in Florida, not even married to the woman. Finds out the kid's not his. Court still ordered him to pay child support. Said it was in the best interest of the child. He shook his head. That case is still tied up in appeals. Kid's about to turn 18. Even if he wins, he's never getting a cent back. Not one goddamn cent. I leaned forward, voice rising. At the very least, I said, barely able to mask the bitterness in my voice. Can I get the money back from my cheating wife's boyfriend? Mr. Big Shot didn't even flinch. In most states, number only. The mother can pursue compensation, and even then, it's rare. There are only 2 states where a man can legally attempt to recover financial damages from the mother's affair partner. But even then, you'd have to prove 3 things. 1, that your wife and the boyfriend both knew the child wasn't yours. 2, that they knowingly deceived you. And 3, that their deception directly created undue hardship for the child and lowered your family's quality of life. He paused and gave me a pointed look. And Mark, take a wild guess, our state isn't one of the 2. I sank back in the chair, feeling like I was absorbing punches in slow motion. Ask yourself this, he continued, resting his forearms on his desk. Is your pride worth more than half your assets? Worth years of spousal and child support? Because the money you'd lose isn't buying your self-respect back, and it sure as hell won't give you your reputation or peace of mind. Eric, who had stayed silent for a while, finally spoke. Maybe a marriage counselor could help? People come back from worse. Mr. Big Shot let out a dry, humorless chuckle and waved it off. Sure, you can try, but in my experience, counseling helps in less than 10% of cases like yours. Most of the time, it just gives the cheating spouse a head start time to prepare their next move while pretending to patch things up. He turned toward me again. Statistically, more than 2/3 of women who go through marriage counseling are the ones who initiate divorce anyway. And more than 55% of women who cheat once end up leaving their marriages eventually. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but he kept going. Custody laws? In split states, there's a little more balance, but we don't live in one of those states. Here, it's a winner-take-all system, and the mother has the advantage by default. He leaned back and gave me a tired look. How old are you? 35, I muttered. My voice sounded small in that big office. Yeah, he nodded, almost sadly. Mark, I hate to say this, but cheating usually spikes when the wife hits around 45. If Elena's already cheated before hitting 40, odds of a repeat are very high, close to inevitable. My jaw clenched. My fists balled. The pain and guilt from the first affair wear off, he explained. But the memory of how exciting it felt, that doesn't fade. If anything, it mutates into this perfect fantasy. Like some high school athlete who once hit a game-winning shot but shattered his leg doing it. He paused. Years later, that same guy doesn't remember the pain. He remembers the glory, and he'll do anything to feel it again. But while that athlete stuck living through his kids' games, a spouse, they have options. They can try to recreate that high by finding someone new. Again. Eric shifted beside me. I knew he was reading my thoughts. Once she cheats, it's only a matter of time before she does it again. Mr. Big Shot held his palms out wide. Look, nothing's absolute. But infidelity? It's second only to financial stress as the top reason for divorce. And the two often go hand in hand. I gritted my teeth. I swear, this will never happen to me again. Mr. Big Shot gave a slow shrug. Swear all you want, Mark. Swearing is just a compromise between fight and flight, a way of talking big while doing nothing. I muttered, Jesus Christ, this is all just crap. Isn't it cheaper to keep her? He asked, half joking, half serious, philosophically speaking. I stared at him, stunned. Extramarital affairs, he said, affect nearly 70% of married couples over time. Kids change the whole equation, but not always in a good way. Children of divorce? Higher risk of substance abuse, risky sexual behavior, depression, rage. It's the one thing we do know for sure. There are no real winners in divorce. Except that the biggest losers are always the kids. And then, as if summoned by fate itself, I didn't even tell anyone at first. Not Eric. Not the shrink. I just held it in through a few good therapy sessions. Why? Because, in some twisted way, I'd already made peace with it. Neither of us had been saints. We weren't virgins when we met, and it's not like we hadn't both made choices before. But when I found something better, whether it was a woman, a job, a path forward, the old things stopped mattering. It became history. That was the same with the law firm. The day my contract ended, I never looked back. I remembered what Eric had said, and I took it seriously. From that day on, I made a quiet vow to myself. Do only what makes me happy. It was in line with my dad's beliefs too. Children come first. That was his golden rule, so that's what I clung to. Elena? She became a background character in my life. Static noise. I kept all interactions minimal, polite when necessary, but nothing more. The less emotional real estate she took up in my head, the better. Ironically, life got easier a week after I met with Mr. Big Shot. Mark, I have great news, Elena announced at dinner, practically glowing. The salon's promoting me to full-time manager. I nodded, silently chewing my food. I'll have to work evenings and weekends at first, she added quickly, but I'm sure you and the boys can handle dinner on your own. I smiled faintly. I think we'll survive. It was perfect. I left for work before she got out of bed, and by the time she got home from the salon, I was already asleep. On her days off, I told her I was meeting friends to play darts. In reality, I started seeing a psychoanalyst, someone I could talk to without the filter. What I discovered surprised me. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. Just unfulfilled. And I finally understood something. While I had obligations to my children, I also had obligations to myself. I couldn't control Elena's past, present, or future behavior. Life is full of temptation, but giving in, that's on you. And when I stopped trusting her, something shifted. The love I once had, it dissolved. The hate I'd carried after the betrayal, it faded too. But a kind of numbness lingered. I did what I did for the boys' end of story. Elena, well, she became like the girl next door with benefits. Casual, distant, not emotionally real anymore. And honestly, she never seemed to notice. She was so wrapped up in her new managerial role that she hardly realized how detached I'd become. Meanwhile, the boys and I, we were living. I took out a massive home equity loan and finally splurged pool in the backyard, outdoor deck, and a fully renovated basement turned man cave. I ditched my gas-sipping sedan and bought a beast of an SUV, completely irresponsible gas mileage, but built like a tank. Between my kids and Katie's, we filled that thing with laughter and mud and fast food wrappers. I bought season tickets to every local sports team and became the unofficial team chauffeur, hauling kids and gear like some suburban roadie. Win or lose, it always ended the same. A trip to the pizza place or the ice cream shop, my treat. Katie came with us often. People assumed we were one big family. Someday, I'd like to be, I once said, half joking. Katie gave me a look, half curious, half confused. Elena, on the other hand, kept ducking out of everything. She always had a reason: too tired, too busy, too something. Eventually, the boys stopped asking if she wanted to come along. A few years passed. My oldest and Katie's eldest both got into the same college, mine with a partial scholarship. Katie never found out I covered the rest for both of them. Room, board, books, all of it. 3 years later, déjà vu. Our youngest kids, same college, same dorm, same scholarships, same quiet funding from me. And now here we are, present day. My dilemma? Stay or go. Move on or play it safe. Burn it down or keep pretending. Elena sat outside on our deck, wine glass in hand, watching the summer slip away with that same detached smile she wore most nights. The pool shimmered in the late August light, and I just stood there, wondering if this was the moment. I came back outside after clearing out the SUV snack wrappers, sports gear, the scent of a dozen road trips lingering in the air. The boys were gone. The driveway was empty, and silence had returned to the house. I walked slowly to the lounge chair across from Elena, who sat reclined on the deck, wine glass in hand. She didn't even open her eyes. "Mark," she sighed, "now that the boys are gone, the house feels so empty." She took a slow sip of wine. "But maybe that's good. I'm ready for a change." I stared at her for a moment, heart pounding in a steady, quiet beat. "You have no idea," I thought. "You'll get your change," I said aloud, pulling a folded stack of papers from my pocket and dropping them onto the glass table between us. "Elena," I said evenly, "I don't think we should be together anymore. I want a divorce." She sat up, startled, her wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her glass. "What?" she said, reaching for the papers. She flipped through them quickly. "What is this, Mark? Some kind of joke?" "It's just a copy of the divorce petition," I replied calmly. "As soon as you find a lawyer, mine will send the official version. If you look closely, you'll see it's fair. I've tried to be civil." Her eyes darted over the pages, scanning, stuttering, slowing. Then her voice rose. "Are you crazy, Mark?" she practically shouted. "After 20 years, you're just walking out?" She kept flipping through the paperwork, her face tightening. "No alimony? Where's the savings listed? Total household debt? What the hell is this supposed to be?" I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "We make about the same now, and our retirement accounts are evenly matched." That part was true. I deliberately deferred every raise over the past few years, and I kept my 401 contributions low. Most of what I had put in, I'd already withdrawn to cover the boys' college expenses. Elena looked like someone had driven an axe straight through her chest. "We only make the same because I work twice as many hours as you," she spat. "I'm not selling my house. I built this home, Mark." "Elena," I said, my patience thinning, "we're upside down on the mortgage. That loan for the veranda, the new kitchen, where do you think the money came from?" She slammed the papers onto the table. "We are not getting divorced. End of story." I watched her carefully. Something in her eyes shifted. Suddenly, like a light bulb snapping on in a dark room, her expression contorted. "You son of a bitch," she hissed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You found someone, didn't you? That's what this is. You used me up, took the best years of my life, and now you're running off with some little girl." Her voice climbed higher, shriller. "How long have you been cheating on me, Mark? Huh? You piece of garbage." I rubbed my temples. "Please, Elena, let's not do this. The reason doesn't matter. We live in a no-fault state. The assets and debts will be split, period. This isn't about revenge." "Wrong," she snapped. "It does matter. I deserve to know. I need to know. Who was it?" I looked at her, exhausted. "There were indiscretions," I admitted quietly. "But that's not the point. We're long past the point of discussing blame." My vision blurred for a second as her glass of wine sailed across the table and splashed into my face. I stood to go inside, no longer surprised. Before I made it to the door, I felt the thud of the empty glass bouncing off my shoulder and shattering on the floor behind me. She stormed after me, furious, voice rising with every step. "You're throwing me out so you can have your midlife crisis with some little tart? You're disgusting. No wonder our sex life has been dead the last few years." She was screaming now. "Well, guess what, buddy? I've had plenty of opportunities to cheat, but I didn't." She was about to say more, then she stopped. Frozen. I had walked to the kitchen counter and, with the calm of a man past breaking, placed a stack of glossy photographs on the table. One, then another, then another. Each one clearer than the last. Each one of her and Josh in positions you couldn't mistake for anything else. Revealing, intimate, undeniable. Her face turned the color of chalk. She stumbled back, one hand to her mouth, and rushed toward the sink like she might vomit. I gathered the photos into a neat pile, the glossy edges still slightly curled. Sitting down at the kitchen table, I looked directly at Elena. "Well," I said quietly, "it looks like you did take advantage of those opportunities you say you never acted on." She rinsed her mouth under the faucet, splashed cold water on her face, and grabbed the nearest towel. For a moment, she just stood there, dripping, then turned and slowly sat down across from me. "Please, Mark," she whispered, pushing the stack of photos toward me with one hesitant finger like it was a venomous snake ready to strike. "Take it away." I slid the envelope back toward me, folded the photos inside without saying a word, and tucked them into the dresser drawer behind me. The drawer closed with a soft click. Elena buried her face in her hands. "Oh my God," she said through her fingers. I don't even know what to say." I let out a long, tired breath. "You don't need to say anything. It doesn't matter anymore." She reached across the table and grabbed my hand, desperate now. "Mark, please, listen to me. It was just once. You have to believe me." "No," I said, pulling my hand back. "I don't have to believe anything. And frankly, I don't." I leaned back, arms crossed. "What's your argument here? That you wouldn't lie about cheating?" She flinched, her grip on the edge of the table tightening. "It was so long ago," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't know how hard being a mother would be. I was exhausted. You were always working, school, jobs, everything. And I felt like I was vanishing. I wasn't Elena anymore. I was Mom. I was just Mark's wife. I didn't know who I was." I shook my head slowly. I was busting my ass with 2 jobs in college for us, for this family. So forgive me if I don't want to hear about how hard it was for you. I know, she said quickly. I know, Mark, and I regret it. God, I wish I could take it all back. I was just trying to stay sane. Josh was, well, he was always around. He was funny, drunk most of the time, but harmless. And sometimes when his mom came over to help with the baby for a few minutes, it felt like I could breathe again. Just be an adult. Not a mother, not a wife, just me. I stood up to leave, but she kept going, the words pouring out like a broken dam. He always had a drink in his hand. I started taking sips too. Not much, just enough to loosen up. He'd pull out that stupid high-speed camera and act like he was some big-time photographer. He'd tell me how amazing I looked, how the camera loved me. I started playing along, lifting my shirt a little, pulling it off my shoulder, just pretending. Her voice broke. At first, it was just silly, flirty stuff, like dumb teenage rebellion. Then it just escalated. I stood frozen in place, unable to look away. One day, she said quietly, I mentioned I wanted to take a photo of you for Christmas. Josh offered to help, said he could do it for free. And the photo turned out great, didn't it? You loved it. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I remember that photo. Right after that, she continued, our son fell asleep on the couch in Josh's studio. You mean, I said coldly, his parents' basement? She winced. Yes, his basement. She wiped her face with the towel again, trembling. I thought the baby would sleep for a while. I didn't want to wake him, so we had a drink, then another. One thing led to another, and her eyes filled again with tears. You and I hadn't been intimate in so long, Mark. I felt excited, desired. Josh kept clicking that damn camera and telling me how sexy I looked, how naughty I was, and I leaned into it. I let it happen. I clenched my jaw, gripping the back of the chair so tightly my knuckles ached. You had sex with that drunk, I said, my voice shaking, while our son, was sleeping just a few feet away? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her lip quivered. Oh God, Mark, she whispered, folding in on herself like a paper doll. I'm so ashamed. I don't know what came over me, Elena whispered. I was so. Her voice broke. She dropped her head onto the table, sobbing. Elena, I said gently but firmly, we can't change the past. All we can do now is admit what we did and move forward. I reached into the folder beside me, pulled out the divorce papers again, and placed them between us on the table. Please, just sign the papers. We'll tell people we grew apart, went our separate ways. No one outside this family needs to know the details. She slowly lifted her tear-streaked face. It doesn't have to be this way, Mark, she pleaded. It was so long ago. It was a mistake, a stupid, meaningless blip, something with no real consequences. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out another set of documents, heavier this time, marked with charts, labels, and stamps. I laid them out in front of her. As she flipped through them, her face paled. What is this? She asked, her voice wary, hands trembling as she scanned the pages. These are the results of the DNA tests I had done for our family, I said evenly, and our blood types. I pointed at the highlighted section. You see that one entry? The match that doesn't fit? She stopped breathing. Elena's hand shot to her chest. She made a strangled, choking sound and doubled over slightly in the chair. I got up fast, pulled a paper bag from the kitchen cabinet, and shoved it into her hands. Elena, breathe into this. Now, I said, calm but firm. You're hyperventilating. Slow it down. In through your nose. Easy. That's it. She clutched the bag and obeyed, her breaths ragged but beginning to settle. A minute passed. Finally, her skin regained some of its color. She set the bag down shakily on the table. I sat back down across from her. You knew all along, I said quietly. Not a question, a statement. She started shaking her head, twisting the empty bag in her hands like a nervous tick. I suspected, she stammered. But I prayed I was wrong. I was never completely sure. I looked at her hard. Elena, come on. You graduated with honors in biology, if I remember right. You must have thought I was a damn fool, swallowing that nonsense about the baby being premature. I ran a hand over my face, feeling older than I ever had before. Now you understand why I don't believe you can't believe you. Not just about the cheating. You forced me to raise a child that wasn't mine. A son I love like my own, and now I find out he never was. It wasn't like that, she whispered. After Josh and after that night, I was so ashamed. I didn't want anyone to touch me, not even you. She closed her eyes, tears slipping through. I promised myself I would be the best mother, the best wife. I threw myself into our family, and when I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I had these horrible nightmares that you'd leave me, take our son, force me to… To what? I interrupted. Force you to have an abortion? Throw you out? Elena, in all the time we've been together, have I ever threatened you? Forced you to do anything you didn't want to do? She didn't answer. You knew how I was raised. You knew how important family was to me. And yet, instead of telling me the truth, you lied. It was just one lie, she whispered. One terrible lie. No, Elena, I said sharply. It wasn't one lie. It was thousands. Every day you looked me in the eye and didn't tell me the truth, that was another lie. Every hug, every birthday, every Christmas morning. She was sobbing again. I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice, I said coldly. You chose silence. And now, I get to choose what happens next. She looked up at me, eyes wide with fear. Please, Mark, she whispered. Don't tell the boys. Please, don't do that to them. I took a deep breath. Elena, I said softly but firmly, the time for lies is over. Children raised in secrecy and deception, they grow up never trusting what they're told. They become insecure, dependent, always waiting for the next hidden truth to drop like a bomb. I leaned in. And when the family finally collapses, if there's no honesty left to fall back on, they're stranded. She didn't speak. So either you tell them, I said, locking eyes with her, or… I will, Elena whispered. Oh God, what am I supposed to tell them? Boys, your mother is a cheap, lying, ungrateful woman who cheated on your father? I actually smiled, not out of joy, just exhaustion. You can probably leave out the cheap, lying, ungrateful part, I said gently. How about we tell them their mother made a mistake, a serious one, but that nothing changes the fact that they're our sons, and we both love them the same as always. And surprisingly, the boys took it pretty well. Considering their generation where half their friends have stepdads, stepmoms, two dads, or are part of some wildly blended family, this was just another chapter. It wasn't the scandal I had dreaded. Elena, though, remained bitter. She clung to the idea that we could still work things out, kept insisting that letting go of the house, the home we'd built together, was a waste. But for me, that chapter was over. Emotionally, I had already packed my bags. Oddly enough, it was the house, not the divorce, that turned into a full-blown war. Megabank, our mortgage holder, didn't exactly play fair. When we tried to initiate a short sale, they blocked every path forward. Every call led to a different department. Every agent gave a different answer, and we never once spoke to the same person twice. Their paperwork was a joke impossible to fill out, contradictory and endless. I swear we single-handedly destroyed a small forest in Washington state with all the written requests they demanded. Thankfully, Eric came to the rescue. He called in a favor from one of his old law school buddies, a ruthless real estate attorney who'd built a career out of making lenders pay for their sins. Over the next few months, that guy dismantled Megabank's case like it was made of tissue paper. Turns out, Not only had the bank violated its own internal policies, they'd also trampled over multiple state and federal laws put in place to protect homeowners dealing with underwater mortgages. And then, in the most poetic twist of fate, Megabank didn't even show up for the court hearing. Despite receiving 4 certified letters, they never sent anyone. The court issued a default judgment. The house was awarded to us free and clear, and Megabank had to eat all legal fees plus court costs. The circus didn't stop there. When our lawyer showed up at the local branch armed with a court order, 2 sheriffs, and a moving crew, things got real. Furniture, computers, lighting, everything inside the branch was fair game. The branch manager stood slack-jawed, begging anyone on the other end of his personal phone, his work phone had already been seized, to escalate the call. The media caught wind. Local reporters flooded the scene. "David defeats Goliath" became the viral tagline. Our lawyer and I were minor celebrities for a week. I didn't want to jinx it, but the entire ordeal ended up benefiting the divorce settlement. Elena refused to sell the house right away, said it was the last stable thing she had. So, after hours of back and forth, we came to an agreement. She'd stay in the house, pay me half the rental value as compensation, and cover gas, electric, water. We'd split the insurance and property taxes 50-50, and if the house sold in the future, the profits would be divided evenly. With that settled, I did what every recently divorced, emotionally scorched, middle-aged man does. I moved into a cheap, half-furnished apartment with outdated appliances, flickering lights, and a smell I couldn't quite identify. For a little while, I finally decided it was time to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. Naturally, I did what every recently divorced, emotionally wrecked man does. I joined a gym. I hate gyms. But there I was, standing at the reception desk, trying to look motivated, while mentally dreading the upcoming free session with a personal trainer. I was barely holding on when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Mark? Oh my God, I can't believe it's you!" I turned and saw Katie, my old neighbor, beaming as she walked toward me. And damn, she looked good. She was wearing a tight gym leotard with the gym's name printed front and back, and when she hugged me, I couldn't help but notice how toned and tight she felt, everywhere. "Katie, you look amazing," I said as she pulled back from the hug. "What are you doing here?" "I work here part-time," she said, glancing down at the clipboard in her hand. Then she smiled. "Looks like I'm your trainer tonight." "Of course you are," I thought. "Which machine do you want to start with?" she asked cheerfully. How about trading?" I offered. "I'll buy you the chocolate bar of your choice instead." Katie burst out laughing and grabbed my arm. "Nice try. Let's go. You're mine for the next 90 minutes. She dragged me over to a lineup of machines that looked more like torture devices from the Spanish Inquisition than anything I remembered from middle school PE. Not a single familiar exercise bike or rowing machine, just futuristic contraptions that looked capable of extracting confessions. I tried not to embarrass myself, but after 90 minutes, I threw up. Twice. Naturally, like any macho idiot, I blamed it on too much coffee at the office. Katie didn't call me on the lie, but her smile said everything. Those weights had to be in metric. There's no way pounds were ever that heavy. Eventually, she took pity on me and agreed to meet for coffee at a local cafe. I limped into the locker room while she looked like she'd just returned from a yoga retreat in Bali. Fresh, glowing, effortlessly beautiful. As we stood in line at the cafe, she hooked her arm through mine, which sent a weird bolt of electricity through me. Meanwhile, I felt like a background extra from The Walking Dead. "Katie, when did coffee get so damn complicated?" I asked as she rattled off a string of ingredients that sounded more like a chemistry equation than a drink order. "If I remember right," I said, "coffee used to come in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. That was it." Katie laughed. That same high musical laugh I'd remembered from back in the day. "Mark," she said, "just tell the barista what you like. They'll make it for you." "Barista?" I repeated, shaking my head. My God. "Okay, I'll take whatever doesn't get a straight guy beat up at a football game." She patted my shoulder as we walked to the table, both of us carrying drinks I couldn't pronounce. Mark, I really missed you. Please, I smirked. You just miss having someone around who fixes your garbage disposal for free. She smirked back, blowing on her caffeinated mystery concoction. Well, that too. She took a slow sip, then looked up. I'm really sorry about you and Elena. I still can't believe she cheated on you. I nearly choked on my drink. Wait, what? Who told you that? How do you even know? Katie didn't flinch. She just met my eyes for a moment, then lowered her cup. No one told me. I've known you both a long time. It's just intuition. I was married to a cop, remember? She shrugged. Amanda always had that look. You know, the I hope I don't get caught face. The look what I got away with smirk. I couldn't prove anything, but I saw it. I sat there, stunned. So, Elena never told you anything? I asked, still trying to process what she'd said. Katie shook her head. Nope. And honestly, even if she had, would that help you? I mean, if she told you every detail, would it really change anything? I exhaled slowly. No, it wouldn't. It's not just about the betrayal, though, yeah, that's part of it. It's the lies. The trust is gone. I looked at my coffee, then back at her. Trying to build a marriage without trust is like asking a blind man to inspect bacteria through a microscope. It's pointless. Katie nodded, saying nothing. And without trust, I said, what's the point of keeping the marriage alive? It's over. It's been over. I tried to lighten the mood, told Katie about the chaos with Elena, the absurd house agreement, the court battle with Megabank, and for the first time in a while, we both laughed. Like really laughed. The kind that loosens something inside you. Time flew by. The coffee cooled, and for a moment, everything felt normal. But then Katie checked her watch and sighed. Mark, I'm so sorry, but I've got to run last bus leaves in a few minutes. Don't worry about the bus, I said, already grabbing my keys. I'll drive you home. Thank you so much, she said, relief flashing across her face. My car won't start starter shot, I think. And with work cutting my hours lately, things are a little tight. I have to wait until my next paycheck just to get it towed and fixed. I glanced at my own watch. Screw that, I said. Why didn't you call me sooner? I'll pick up a starter, drop it in myself. If we leave now, the parts store's still open. Her eyes widened. Mark, seriously? That would be amazing. I've been getting up 3 hours early just to make it to work on time. First, there's the 30-minute walk to the nearest bus stop. Then I have to transfer twice. It's been exhausting. She paused. But I can't pay you right now. I mean, I don't have... I waved her off. Katie, stop. This isn't a loan. You need a car. We'll talk about repayment once you're back on your feet. Besides, all my tools are still sitting in Amanda's garage. I haven't had time to move them yet. I stood up and held out my hand. Come on, beautiful lady. Your chariot awaits hybrid Prius edition. Katie raised an eyebrow, amused. Wait, hybrid Prius? What happened to that monstrous manly SUV of yours? You know, the one that sounded like a small aircraft taking off. I darkened a little. Yeah, that one. I was getting tired of driving from gas station to gas station. I think I was killing half the rainforest just by idling in traffic. People kept looking at me like I was personally setting fire to the ozone layer. Katie laughed. Mark, you in a Prius? I can't picture it. Trust me, I said as I opened the car door for her. Neither can I. Every time I slide into that plastic bubble, I feel my testosterone plummet. But you know how it is with guys, size matters. She giggled as she climbed in. I shut the door behind her. We got lucky the auto shop had the exact starter her car needed. And bonus, it was on sale. Elena wasn't home, but I still had the garage code. Tools in hand, I got to work. An hour and a half later, the car roared to life like it had never been dead. Katie was so thrilled. She threw her arms around me and kissed me right on the lips. It caught me off guard. My hands were still covered in grease and holding a wrench, so I didn't exactly hug her back, but she didn't seem to mind. Afterward, while I was in the kitchen scrubbing the grease off my hands, I noticed the faucet barely opened and the drain was sluggish. "Hey, Katie," I called. "Why didn't you tell me your sink was acting up? I could have fixed this weeks ago." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Mark, you had your hands full with Elena. I didn't want to bother you with something that small. And once the job cuts started, well, I couldn't afford a plumber either." She turned away, but not before I saw the tears forming in her eyes. I'm not a charity case," she added softly. I dried my hands and walked over, placing an arm gently around her shoulders. "This isn't charity," I said. "It's just one neighbor helping another. That's it." I squeezed her hand and gave her a small smile. "Besides, I've got a ton of free time right now. You, on the other hand, seem to have no shortage of stuff that needs doing. So here's what we'll do. Let's make a list. And like Santa Claus, we'll check it twice." I gave her a mock serious look. "Now be a good little elf and bring me a pen and paper." Katie wiped her eyes and chuckled softly. "Okay, Santa, but I'm warning you. If you keep being this sweet, I can't promise I'll stay on the nice list." I finally found my voice. "Katie, that was something," I said, still catching my breath. "Thanks for the support. The boost to my ego, really. But you didn't have to do all that." Katie stood in front of me, silent, strong, her eyes locked onto mine. Then, without a word, she reached down and pulled her blouse over her head. No bra. Even for her age, her body was breathtaking. My eyes were drawn immediately to the two most obvious reasons, but I forced myself to meet her gaze. I had to brace myself for what came next. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice low, serious. "You really want this?" She stepped closer, looped her arms around my neck. "Mark," she said softly, "I've known you longer than I knew my husband. I loved him deeply. And after he passed, I promised I'd raise our boys right. I kept that promise." She paused, resting her forehead against mine. "Now it's time I kept the other promise I made him to take care of myself." And with that, she took my hand, led me up the stairs, and into her bedroom. I don't know who was more nervous, her, after almost 20 years of being alone, or me, unsure if I was walking into something I wasn't ready for. But somehow, like riding a bike, we found our rhythm, our balance, our pace. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't awkward. It was something in between rediscovery and starting over. And after, lying there tangled in the sheets, Katie turned to me, eyes half-lidded and soft with something that felt dangerously close to hope. "Mark," she said simply, "you're going to move in with me." It wasn't a question, it was a declaration. I blinked. Wait, what? That's a bold statement. She propped herself up on one elbow, which not incidentally gave me another full view of those perfect, gravity-defying breasts. "Mark," she said, raising a hand before I could object, "we've known each other most of our lives. We're too old for games." She kept going. "It's a win-win. You need a place to live. I have space. I care about you. You care about me. We both have needs, physical, emotional, practical. Why should you waste money on rent when you can use that for your future? For your next house? A down payment? Mortgage? Whatever." She paused. "Besides, you built half of this place with your own hands. You know this house better than I do." I chuckled. "Katie, wouldn't it be weird?" I nodded toward the window. "That's my old house, Elena's house, right across the street." She shrugged, without missing a beat. "Not my problem. I'm done caring about what people think. I only care what you think. You still technically own that house, remember? So isn't it nice to look at your investment every day?" And so that's what we did. Yeah, things were a little awkward at first. A few looks, a few murmurs. But Katie and I, we made it work. Elena, though, She was stuck, bitter, frozen in place. One day I stopped by her place to patch a crack in the driveway because I'm still that guy, and while I was smoothing out sealant, she stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. "Damn it, Mark," she said. "When are you coming back home?" I didn't even look up. "It's crazy, you know. You belong here, with me. Just tell me what I need to do to fix this. I regret everything. Just tell me how to make it right." I peeled the sealant cover off, stood up slowly. "Elena," I said, "I know you're sorry, and so am I, but we're not getting back together. That chapter's closed. You need to move on with your life." "To who?" she snapped bitterly. "I work at a salon, Mark. Half my coworkers are gay hairdressers, and most of my clients are bitter ex-wives. I never thought I'd be one of them." She stared at the ground. I didn't say anything, just started gathering my tools. "Come on, Mark," she pleaded. "You can give me another chance. Forgive. Forget. For the boys, at least. The holidays are coming. We should be together." "Elena," I said calmly, "you are forgiven. I forgave you a long time ago." I looked her in the eyes. "And for more than a decade, you had a chance every single day to choose this family. And every day, you didn't." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. "As for forgetting," I shook my head slowly, trying to stay calm. "It's true the holidays are coming," I said. "The boys will be home from school. We can alternate dinners, yours one night, Katie's the next. Keep things balanced, like we used to, just with a few new realities." Elena folded her arms across her chest, eyes narrowing. "I won't tolerate her in my house, and I will never step foot inside hers." I shrugged. "That's your choice, but I think you'll be missed." Honestly, I thought the holidays would be a disaster. I braced myself for tension, side eyes, awkward silences, the usual fallout from a family reshuffling itself around 2 living rooms and 1 emotional battlefield. But to my surprise, the kids rolled with it. Both sets of kids, mine and Katie's, took it all in stride. No drama, no outbursts. I guess their generation is just built different. Divorce, blended families, step everythings. Nothing surprises them anymore. The boys made it a point to attend dinners at both homes, not wanting to hurt either mother's feelings. By Christmas, even Elena had softened enough after a decent amount of emotional pressure from the kids to stop by Katie's house for a brief visit. Katie, being Katie, invited her to stay. Elena declined, but not as coldly as I expected. They'll never be friends again, not like they used to be, trading kid clothes and carpool schedules, but the edge between them dulled over time. Elena even started being polite, which, coming from her, is practically a miracle. As for me and Katie, 1 year in, and I couldn't be happier. It's not that high voltage, fire and flames romance of youth. It's deeper, more solid. It's late-night coffee instead of clubbing, grocery lists scribbled on napkins, shoulder rubs after hard days, and most of all, it's respect. The kind of affection that doesn't need fireworks to feel real. Still, I felt like I owed it to her to ask. One night, while we were wrapped up in each other, I gently brought it up. "So, Katie, have you ever thought about making this official?" She cradled my face in her hands, soft and certain. "Mark," she said, smiling, "you're a great man, and I do want to spend the rest of my life with you, but I made a promise to myself I'd only get married once, ever." She kissed my forehead gently. "I hope you can understand." The truth? Number I didn't really understand. Not fully. But then I remembered something my father always said, the kind of advice that stuck like gum to your soul. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So here we are, living, laughing, repairing what can be repaired, letting go of what can't. And if that's not love the real kind, I don't know what is. If you've made it this far, consider subscribing to our channel, especially if you don't want your second chance at love to cheat on you. And go ahead and listen to the next story, because trust me, this one was nothing compared to what's coming next. Under 18? Don't even think about clicking.